All right, today at long last, I get to start opening some of the packages of parts that I've had around to go make the first prototype. You're about to see what we've got. I had gotten a bunch of stuff for the BridgeBike, and I kind of don't remember what it all is, but these are all things that are required to build a bicycle, and some of them are unique to the BridgeBike. So down here we have all of these old bike parts, and over here we have a bunch of new parts I have, and there's some other parts, but these are just a handful of things that are particular to the project. I want to open a few of them and show what's there. So initially we'll start the first prototype with bike parts and some steel, etc. But if I want to show you some things that are particular to the BridgeBike, I'll start with this box. I remember ordering this, thinking it's not exactly what I want, but it'll do to start. Yeah, that's nice and shiny. One of the things I want the BridgeBike to have is a trunk, and that is a trunk. And so this will go in the front, and it'll give a place to put things while you ride around and leave things while you are off doing your own things, and your bike will keep your stuff safe. And it's secure enough to hold things, and in part it will hold your stuff. It'll also be a way to get locks in the bicycle that themselves are secure. Let's go with this. Is used on scooters and small motorcycles, etc. And it's essentially a windscreen that's portable and flexible. A way to make a bicycle inexpensive and flexible for different purposes, different climates, etc. And then we get to other stuff. Do I know what's in this box? I really don't remember it all. I have no idea. We're about to find out. This is a very big box for something relatively small. Oh, no, this is more than I thought. This is, let's start with, that's a mounting frame for the back of a normal bicycle, and it's just a rack for the back, but in here is a place to slide a battery and power controller, and this was a kit, which will be very useful. As a large power controller and a large battery to go in that. So cabling, useful stuff. I think that's the controller in there. Brackets and parts. If that's where we store our energy. This is how in revision 1 we're going to put the energy on the ground. So that's a very generic electric bike wheel. It's a rear wheel, so it's got the sprockets and things, which will work with the derailleur. So given a battery and given a wheel, we should be able to have a bike that has pretty good power, pretty good range. I'm hoping that we get at least a 10 or 15 mile range at 20 miles an hour. If we start with the power in the wheel, we also have to be able to stop. And one of the things I learned riding electric bikes is they're a little heavier and they don't start very well. So these are better than average disc brake calipers for a bicycle, and that's a kit that we can build in and weld in so that it aligns very well with the three-wheel design that we're about to do. And because electric bikes don't stop well, instead of using a normal disc rotor, these are oversized disc rotors. So they should help the bike stop a lot better. One last box to open here. before we get onto it is, turns out, other brake packs. So in order to have enough braking moment to really stop the bike, I wanted to have enough parts to have good quality calipers and maybe dual sets of calipers. We'll see what it takes to make that work. So, bike parts. We have a bunch of these parts, we have a bunch of these frames, and now we can get to sawing some things apart. I have the original design. It's been so long since I've looked at it, I don't really remember what the details of it were, and I'm thinking in a hurry to make this bike, I want to just start sawing things apart and make the Frankenstein bicycle. Lots of body parts from old bicycles, lots of new parts, which are quality parts or quality enough parts for a first prototype, and to get some of the basic design ideas down. From here, I think we sit at the bench and start sawing things apart, putting things together and seeing how we can make things fit. This is the bicycle design. I haven't seen it in a while, but basically I'm going to go scrounge parts to make this back end. So we're going to go to that pile and pick up some parts. I think way here in the back is this old bike, and that might be a good thing to use for the frame. I don't know how much to do this with wrenches and how much to do this with grinders. Let's start by pulling this off. Right. It's straight. The basic frame of this bike is still true. Stay. 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 Don't say. I'm looking forward to taking this apart enough to chop out the pieces I want with the saw. Geez, you could be a tall person on that bike. I'd like you to note how this chain goes through this frame, and I'd like you to note how easily I'm going to get it out. Because that chain's not worth anything. I stripped this old bicycle down a little more, took off the shifters and the brake parts and all of that and got the frame down. And while I was at it, I went and grabbed the rear wheel electric motor. And I realized something, that most of these electric motors were wider than the standard forks on a bicycle, but it turns out these are just about right the way they are. So I'll just use this whole frame the way it is, clean off that so I can weld the frame going forward onto it. Probably won't make it level, but rather tip it down so that the seat is a little more upright, and then put the rack for the battery packs and the other rack stuff on the back, and then go get some tubes and things for connecting that frame further forward. So I'll build those racks above the wheel and then build that, and then we'll worry about how to go and build that front frame. So anyhow, that's kind of what I'm up to. I'm going to take a second and clean this up a bit. Given that I don't have the right Allen key to take that crank off, we'll just use it the way it is for the moment. It's not nearly cleaned up enough to weld, but it is cleaned up enough to see how the pieces look together. And while I'm at it, kind of knock this down so that it's just two smaller pieces and less stuff sitting around. We'll use those tubes for something. I think that way makes one fully disassembled bicycle. we have sorta kinda that much bicycle. And exactly how it's all gonna fit, I'm not sure. But we'll find out soon. Alright, so I've torn apart all of the bicycles and I have all the parts up there and wheels and things and got frames for other parts, and soon we'll be able to start cutting steel and welding together something for the very first Frankenstein bicycle. I also have set aside all the little 12-inch kids bikes and one aluminum frame bike which was in relatively good shape. So that one I think we'll put together for someone and just let them use it as a plain old bicycle. There must be a neighborhood kid who needs a bike. So with that, I'm going to sign off for today. And we'll get back to this tomorrow and start thinking about welding some stuff together or cutting some parts to weld together so we have a basic frame and chassis and can start thinking about how we want to put the electronics in and things like that. So thanks a lot. Stay tuned.